Family, friends and foes. Activate. Yeah. It's Quas Eastside. They Black. Kiko Bay and Sticks a Million.
I said I'm African. I can everything. Many tracks were sent.
What?
We talking everything.
Dep
I'm
traps.
one with everything.
Overcome.
That means I'm one for all.
One for the family.
For nothing. That's why
African
I got
people.
it all. I said I'm African.
Transformation
I
time.
can everything.
Everything.
Many tracks were sent.
Watch the
We
Dep
talking
traps.
everything. I'm one with everything. That means I'm
I
one
got
for
it
all. I gave my all for nothing. That's why I got it all. More flames I come to burn. I just reflect the sun.
Greetings, Earth family. I'm Eliheru Stanley XI, aka Eli XI, and this show is called Dirt to Work. This is the third episode, and it's all about me and my journey to learn about dirt and all things green. It's also about me transforming myself from a consumer to a producer of my own foods, food products, and derivatives. I've been on a journey, and this is kind of new to me, being a urban person born in a city. I didn't know anything about food except that it came from Kroger's or some other grocery store. Basically, I have been a consumer of big corporate food, the big corporate food supply, an end user, so to speak. You know, not somebody on the high end of the corporate supply food chain, but I'm someone at the very bottom. And so, as I've come to realize that this is not something that is very secure for me. This is not food security. And this is what the topic is today. I'm continuing with this topic from last week because what I'm trying to do is lay the platform for my journey and for my discovery of how do I get back to a place where I'm living like maybe my great grandparents and great great grandparents used to be. You know, people in times past, they did not depend on corporations for everything like we do today. And you can tell as the corporations grow bigger and bigger and bigger and take over through conglomerations and mergers, they've completely taken over the food industry, and most people, like myself, have come dependent on the corporate supply. Now, being a native of Cincinnati here, we have two of the largest corporations with respect to food supply in the country, perhaps in the world. And when you're in the shadow of big corporations like this, you really don't think about your food supply because everything is abundant. Heck, when I get hungry, I need something to eat, I go to Kroger's, or Walmart or some other big corporate food. And I begin to think about this. I'm like, well, what if they shut their door one day? What if something happened like what we see in the movies all the time, the apocalypse or some kind of national emergency or global emergency? What will happen to me? What will happen to my family? What will happen to the people who live in my community if they close the doors? The fact is, in urban neighborhoods all around, locally and in cities all over, People exist in food deserts. What is a food desert? A food desert is when you don't really have access to healthy food. You know, there are a lot of stores around in the communities that I occasionally I tend to move around in. There are a lot of stores, but they don't have food in them. They have food like products, processed stuff, stuff in cans, stuff in bags, stuff that can kill appetites, but they don't nourish us. And this is a real problem because there are food deserts. People tend to go to the places that are nearest to them. And if you go to these stores very often, there is nothing to buy except maybe a bag of chips. I mean, if you're lucky, you might get some nuts or, you know, little small Vienna cans or whatever, you know, just stuff that's not going to actually provide you with the nourishment that you need. But the thing is, you're spending top dollar for it, you know. So the question for me is, what about food security? You know, how do we get to that? Do we depend on big corporations? You think about it. Why would a big corporation whose whole motive, his whole existence is based upon the bottom line? And the bottom line is profit. You know, they're not providing food for us, you know, because they want to feed the world, feed the hungry. Matter of fact, you know, a lot of these corporations throw away more food than there are people to eat the food. So I'm going to go into a little bit about how I came to where I am, my understanding with respect to nature, you know, where I need to be like our ancestors were, closer to the land, and what corporations do. You know, corporations, I talked about this in a couple of shows before, are like big, gigantic, mindless entities. I call them beasts. Corporations are like beasts. Beasts who basically what they call corporate consume. They consume everything. You know, why? You know, like, for example, the difference between a natural form or a small form, especially when it comes to perma-garden farming and corporate farming, is what they do. They might have tractors that are in a whole swaths of land that just grow one thing, and there's rows and rows and rows and rows of one thing. And then they'll have tractors come by and cut that whole thing down. The land is completely cleared. You know, totally unnatural. Unnatural in the sense that if you look at nature, you know, things don't grow like that. You know, you might have, this is why, you know, we'll get into this in a few weeks. I have a few people that I want to invite on the show to talk about it. Permaculture. This is an ancient, also a new technique in growing food, where in nature you have permaculture, where permaculture means that things just grow where they grow. You know, you can have tomatoes and nuts and grapes and whatever all growing in the same place. Kind of like the legend you heard, remember the legend of the Garden of Eden? Where, the first man and woman were in the Garden of Eden. Well, guess what? The earth is truly, in its natural form, in its natural state, a Garden of Eden. It is a permaculture, which is completely different from what corporations offer us. Why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because what I've come to realize is that natural is good, organic is good, unnatural, even though you can get an abundance with unnatural processes like the corporate farming, at the end of the day, it's not good. It's not good for the land, and it's not good for the people. And I'll tell you why it's not good for the people. Because when these corporations, first of all, they strip the land, they privatize the land, they privatize the water, and they use all kinds of chemicals and pesticides to control life, control bugs, control, any kinds of thing. And then they also take and manipulate on a genetic level the food so that it can either grow faster, grow bigger, and be more abundant. This is not good. It's not good. Because you're not allowing the natural process. And because we're not allowing the natural process, we're giving up something. We don't necessarily know. When I go to Kroger's or when I go to the produce department in any store, everything looks great. I love like peppers. I love peppers. I love, certain kinds of greens and grapes and so forth. And it looks so good, but then when you bite into it, there's no flavor. It's the same thing with meats. Back in a certain time, back in 1957, for example, chickens were maybe about this size, and today they're like, way out here. They're much more meatier, but the taste is gone. So at the end of the day, all these things are not food security. What happens is corporations get to a place, they've come to a place where their priority is such that the corporate model is the supply and demand curve thing. And on one side you have the supply, which are your food produce, your meats and all that. And then on the demand side you have users like myself, people who buy the food. And so the curve or the mean is based upon, they're asking the question, how can I get the highest price for what I'm selling to me? So then, what happens with that is they're only concerned about the price, not necessarily about the quality of that food, whether that food is nutritious or not. The same way with the stores that are in the community. People, they come into the communities, put food derivatives, food products in the community, and they're not necessarily concerned about the quality or the nutritious value that's in the food. So this is a real problem. This is a real problem. The other thing about corporations is that they want, or they have a need to what do you call it? When you're in management, especially you're managing a store, you have to keep your books. You have to show, what's being sold, what's profitable, and what's not. So, in order to do that, everything has to be itemized. Everything has a barcode or a tag or a label or a number, and it all makes good sense for the corporation because this is how they are able to track, what they're selling. It's also how they're able to tell whether they're making a profit or not, whether this item versus that item is being, sold or not, what they can take off the shelf, what they can put on the shelf. This is the whole corporate paradigm of corporate food or corporations. Corporations need to have everything tagged, everything labeled. All the food is tagged. And, way back in the factories, they do the same thing. They even, before they process, and I'll use this, word, process the animals, they're all tagged, they're all marked, and so forth. So, guess what? Me, I drink the Kool-Aid just like most people, Like I say, I'm an urban person. I learned how to respond. I'm so conditioned. Well, this is how corporations operate. In order for me to go get my food, I have to do that. I have to have my, like my Kroger Plus card or my Walmart Savers card or these cards. We all have tags. We all have, something that identifies us, that separates us, from the other ones. And this is what I'm really getting at, is that the whole process of corporate food, not only if it is not secure, but it conditions us to be just like the cows and the chickens. Can you imagine? I saw this picture of this one cow that was being processed, and I saw the horror and the tears in this cow's eyes. Now, people don't understand that animals are creatures of, too. So the thing about it is we have to understand when we are on one side of that thing, on one side of the line where you have the animals and the food, and then the people are on the other side of that. So we've created a society. Myself, I'm just as much a part of helping to create the society because I am a consumer, and I also have been in the building industry where I've helped to build out some of these corporate entities as well. We have created a society where we're just like the animals, organic units on the other side of the corporation. And, we don't think about it. But when you think about it, we do the same thing. We stand in lines. Every morning, we go, if you go to any city in America, and you'll have people in lines in cars, lines and lines of cars. Where are they going? They're going to the corporate. Jobs to do that, and everybody has their IDs. Everybody has their tags. Everybody has their assignments, Everybody has their little cubicles. Everybody has their little cocoons, their insulation. So just like the cows. And when we feel like, well, we do this because we need to do this. We need to be, we need to do it because we need our food, our shelter, and all that. And you're right. But it's not what I've learned in terms of my transformation, again, is that there are alternatives to that. This is what I'm learning. I'm learning, you know what this is? These are wheat seeds. This is food security. What I'm learning is that food security is the dirt. Food security are seeds. Corporations create the ideal that, there's a scarcity of something. And so as a scarcity of something, we tend to panic. We tend to, like, for example, if we go to, we hear about a blizzard coming or, a bad rain coming, what do? We run straight to the, store to stock up, in some cases, in some extreme cases, which I don't see anything wrong with based upon the way, the corporate design of the world is right now. We prepare for the worst. We have what they call preppers, people who prepare, and not only prepare, by stocking their houses and their bunkers and their, all these things with food, their basements, but they also, prepare by, getting plenty of ammo and all that. And I started thinking about that. I'm like, you know what? If everybody did that, everybody follows the way of the corporation, then what's going to happen is that we're all going to be panicking when we don't have to, because this is food security. We, as a people, the people of Earth, we are land people. We got land all around us. And what if we need to start teaching our children, ourselves and our children as well, that the Earth is the same Earth as it was in the times of Adam and Eve? In other words, what I'm saying is, that if we use this, like I say, this is wheat. This is bread. This is bread. It took me a lifetime to learn this. It's part of my transformation. But if we just took these things and threw them around anywhere, whether it be bread, tomatoes, carrots, whatever we like, potatoes, garlic, spices, herbs, whatever we like, as a community, as Earth people, if we start using and tapping into what I've heard to be our divine source, our divine understanding of life, which is a natural process. You see, if you throw a seed in the ground, and I know this because I'm learning and I experiment, this only takes 48 hours to sprout. If we started doing that, put it in your garden, any vacant lot, start putting food everywhere, then people would begin to understand that two things. There is no scarcity of food so long as there is dirt. There's no scarcity of food. So we don't have to panic. We don't have to come to a place where we have to feel like we got to kill the next guy in order to make sure that we're going to be okay. It only takes, in some cases, 48 hours for nutrition to come. In some cases, 3 months for nutrition to come. But imagine if we started training ourselves, and this is what I'm doing. I'm just telling you how I'm coming to my realization or self-realization of why I need to have food security. We start training ourselves and our children to plant, then, all of our cities could be what are called permagardens, where now you don't have to worry about someone or someone being so nervous that they have to come and break down your door with a gun or something for your canned goods, because you can say, heck, you're hungry, go out in the yard and pick a few tomatoes or pick some onions. Go around the corner and there are some, grapes around the corner. There are some berries over here. People can go around foraging and getting what they need, you see. So this is what we need to do. We need to take our place back from the corporations. Corporations, look at it. They waste all kinds of food. They are the biggest sources, biggest producers of pollution. And what I mean by that, think about it. Packaging. Because they have everything in boxes, and like I say, everything has to be labeled and itemized. When we get the food in packages, what we do with the cans? What do we do with the plastic? What do we do with the wraps and all that? We throw it away, and the corporations, they don't take responsibility for us throwing it away, but where does it end up? It ends up in landfills. It ends up in the sea. It ends up around the necks of, seals. I mean, we have so many things that we are being affected by in a negative way because we have adopted the system of big corporate food. Big corporate food is like, it's a great ideal, but there are a lot of great ideals and theories that don't really pan out in reality. And all I'm saying is that in terms of the long term, the only people who are going to profit with that kind of system are a small number, like they say, the 1%. I don't know what the percentage is, but, I'm just going on and going. But I want to just mention this last thing. We have a food co-op that a few people in the city, with myself, have joined and organizing to talk about this a little bit more. We have plans to grow food in a permaculture way. And if you're interested, give me a call. You can email me at eliharustanleyxi on Facebook or eliharu@gmail.com. And if you want to come on the show, you have ideas about how to do permaculture or horticulture or any kind of thing that you want to share with the community, you're welcome to come in and invite it. But that's what I like to leave with you, that you don't have to be feel threatened about your food security so long as there's dirt to work.
Family, friends and foes, activate. Yeah, it's Quas East Side. They Black, Kiko Bay and Sticks a Million.
I said I'm African, I can everything. Many trucks were sent, we talking everything. I'm one with everything.